welcome back to the Comeback Series. My name's Aaron Turnbull, the Head Physio and Director here at Game Time Performance. In this video, I'm going to be breaking down a strength session that I did with a Rugby League athlete who was 14 weeks post ACL reconstruction. Now for context, Harry is in the strength phase of his ACL rehab at the moment. So essentially the test that we want to tick off and achieve before he starts to get back to running, we want to restore relative symmetry, so within 10% for him, for his quads, his calves, and looking at his hip, his abductors and adductors. Because he has a hamstring graft, we don't expect to get there just yet with that, but we want to see continual improvement, and we want to make sure that he gets within 10% on his forward hop, so starting on his right, landing on his right versus his good side, his left side, before we know he's ready to run. Another real important part for me, for my athletes, is to ensure that they get through the program that I have. So with the strength program, they're starting to lift heavy, they're starting to implement some low-level plyometrics and be able to get through that program and do a bit of volume. And that tells me when we do start to run them and progress them into the running phase or their power phase of the rehab, that they're not just going to blow up on you, the knee's not going to swell up. So these sort of sessions need to be hard in the gym to ensure that we're not stitching our athletes up and having to take unnecessary steps back within the rehab phase. So we started off today with a B stance RDL. So really love these to really target that ACL side. So in this example with Harry here, we actually did more reps on the right side. So we did 10 on the right, 8 on the left. Makes sense, right? They've pulled out a big chunk of that right hamstring for the graft. So we want to make sure that we just continue adding a bit more volume, intensity as it allows, because otherwise if we're just doing bilateral work or doing the same amount of reps, it's just going to take longer to get that hammy deficit to disappear. So target this early on. And another thing you'll see here in the video is we're using straps. All right, so an RDL, whether it be a barbell, a dumbbell, whatever it is, it shouldn't be a grip exercise. And what I mean by that, we don't want the limiting factor to be an athlete's grip. And often an RDL, you can go 20, 40, even higher percent higher in the weight purely just by using straps. All right, it's a hammy exercise, not a grip. So doesn't matter what they're doing, rehab, performance, straps, absolutely flog them. So highly recommend that. We then paired this up with a single leg drop landing. So essentially just stepping off the box, thinking about absorbing those forces, getting those quads to work a bit quicker in preparation for those ground reaction forces during jogging. With this one, we pair it up with the RDLs, just getting a bit of post-activation potentiation here. So we're working the legs, lifting heavy, usually maybe a squat, and then going into like a plyometric. We're going to get, I guess, a better performance of that plyometric, that landing, that jump, therefore ideally some better adaptation and results there. So that was sort of our post-activation potentiation or PAP pairing there. And then as that A3, we put a hollow hold in here, making sure we've got some really good strong foundations further up the chain so that we do start to get back to some more change of direction drills. We're just solid through there and we're not just focusing on the knee. So that was our A series. We did 3 sets of those exercises before moving to our B series. So first and foremost, our B1, we started with a single leg eccentric leg press. So we're thinking about 4 seconds on the way down there. Time under tension, eccentric quad strength, it's awesome. And once again, with my ACL rehab, more and more, I just transitioned to a bigger focus on single leg work. There's nowhere to hide when you're on one leg, all right? So even 5, 6, 7 months down the track, if you go heavy on a back squat, they're probably still going to favor the other side. So at the end of the day, we want to rehab that athlete and ensure it doesn't have to take any longer than it needs to. So I'm a big fan of just, putting that ACL leg on show and making sure that it's got nowhere to hide. So that's 6 to 8 reps with that time under tension with a higher eccentric. So essentially 30 to 60 seconds on tension. Bloody tough. So it's a good one there. And then once again, hitting that plyometric straight away with it. So we've got our forward pogos. Think about the ground's lava, getting off the ground, trying to improve that stretch shortening cycle in preparation for running and helping with his efficiency as he starts to get some Ks into his legs. And then we paired it up with our B series here, just with a single leg hip thrust. Once again, doesn't have to be very heavy with this movement, but when done well, thinking about pushing through our midfoot, you can get some quite tough, especially for an athlete who's had a hammy graft, but usually we chuck a dumbbell on here. Then with our C series, we finished off with a double eccentric hemi slider, absolute go-to for mine. It's a bit of a regression from a Nordic. Honestly, if you tried to Nordic someone without maybe band assist at this stage, they wouldn't be your best mate. So this is a nice sort of prerequisite to progress to those. So essentially just focusing on a 5 seconds on the way out, and just sort of just focusing on the outwards phase there. Then went to a Cossack slider, so nice and easy. He's still very early days, but just a bit of a long lever option here. A cue that we're kind of focusing on with that leg that's sliding out is thinking about scooping sand back towards your other ankle. That's one I like to kind of coach my athletes. 80% of the weight's on the leg that's bending compared to 20% on the one that's sliding out. Just starting to add a little bit of frontal plane load through the knee. Nothing crazy, nothing dangerous. And finishing off just with some ankling, so a bit more foot resilience and stiffness work here. Loading up those calves big time in preparation to absolutely smash his return to running testing that hopefully we'll do in the next week, so we can start to get him into that power phase, starting to do a lot more jumps and running, and getting him closer and closer back to rugby league. So there you have it, a typical strength session within the gym during the ACL rehab and the strength phase specifically. Harry will be doing 2 gym sessions a week, as well as a bit of a home program, working on his biggest deficits, as well as a bit more hammy resilience work in that graph site, to ensure that when we do test him, we've really been working hard and we've earned the right to progress. Now guys, if you got a little bit out of that content, you enjoy these sort of session breakdowns, make sure you like and subscribe to the channel. And if you're an athlete who's going through a bit of a sports rehab at the moment and you want to step out, you want to even just ask some questions, I'm happy to answer them. So if you want to just click the link in the bio or the show notes there, happy to answer any questions there. And if you're a sports physio or a physio working with athletes and want to elevate your sports rehab, I run a physio mentorship twice a year. The 2026 dates have been finalised. So if you want to jump on the wait list, I've only got 10 spots per intake. If you want to do that there, it's the mentorship I wish I did in my first few years of working in practice. It is really the stuff that I wish my uni had taught me to set myself up to work in this sort of environment. So that link will be below. Hope you took something away from the session today, guys, and we'll see you in the next one.